shall we? Thanks for joining today's webinar, Getting Your School Ready to Scale, 3 Secrets to Unlocking Unstoppable Growth, plus the biggest mistakes to avoid. We are thrilled to have on today's call Solomon Brenner and Michael St. John from the Martial Arts Collective and Dave Kovar of Kovar Systems. So before we get started, as Mr. Kovar pointed out, we do encourage you to please turn on your video if you're comfortable doing so that makes it a little bit more interactive and engaging. And we also ask that you keep yourself muted throughout the presentation. And we have 30 minutes set aside, so let's get to it. I'll hand the floor over to you, Michael, to get started.
I'm going to pass it over to Mr. Kovar, Mr. Brenner, guys. We're all yours.
Well, I'm looking at all these sharp faces. I'm seeing Paul Garcia, my good friend. How are you, man? Good to see you. Derek Riddick, hello, sir. All right. Paul Garcia's been around forever. He knows everything about how to run a martial arts school, and here he is still, listening in. So hopefully we'll give you some little bit of info here. So, I'm excited about today. I've been friends with the Action Karate team for probably a decade now, and I've had the privilege of going out to their schools for the last several years. I go out there 3-4 times a year and get to interact with the team, and they're always a sharp group, and we've always enjoyed brainstorming and learning from one another. But what happened over the pandemic is where a lot of people, struggled as we struggled for a bit, and still are recovering. Right? But the light is really big at the end of the tunnel, and we are experiencing massive growth. Is the Action team just kind of pulled together? They always did well and did some amazing things, and through the pandemic, and actually most of their locations grew. They have 22 locations and they're killing it. And it's really and so it's like, hey, what the heck are they doing? And and they're doing some great stuff. And I thought today would be really a valuable day for us just to kind of share some of our experiences and some of the things that have been working well for us and some mistakes we went. So I'm going to turn the floor over for a minute to Mr. Solomon Brenner. Give him a double thumbs up. All right, sir.
All right. Awesome to see all you guys. For the ones that I can see and for the ones that I can, I'm sure you're very attractive and incredibly intelligent. So yeah, it's super. There's never been a more exciting time, I think, in the martial arts industry than it is right now. I know everybody is going through, not everyone, but I think most people are going through some pretty explosive growth. And in our organization, we're looking at that as like a COVID bounce, right? Like people are looking for things to do, and luckily we've been doing mostly the right thing for a long time. And we're experiencing a lot of greatness, and I think we have to really capitalize on that. And some of it is we have to just be super careful that we don't take it for granted, and that right now the economy is outrageous, right? Like if anybody with kids, which is mostly our market, they're getting $250 a month for their kids. But remember, people live up to their means. However much money they make, that's how much money they spend. So I think that $250 ends in a few months. When that ends, karate is an easy thing to cut unless they really believe it's the greatest thing in the world. And if your school is making more money, making sure that you're investing it, or you're developing new instructors and doing all the right things. I think right now we're in this amazing high because we were so low, and we just have to be before we go into the 3 secrets, I just think really have the mindset of taking advantage of this, but also not believing we're somehow better business people because the economy is so great, and not taking advantage of everything that we possibly can to put ourselves in a really good position. If you spent your 6 months emergency fund, you should be refunding it right now. If you don't have, or if you haven't fully funded your retirement, that should be getting done. And of course, investing in your education, nothing could possibly be more important than that. Mr. Kovar, do you want to start with talking about the importance of systems?
And, first off, I wanted just to kind of capitalize on what you're saying.
One of the secrets.
Yeah, well, I wanted to capitalize on something you were saying. Is there's an assumption here that your classroom is rock solid, that your program is tight. I think being in the business since 1978, man, I've seen a lot of different. I love to throw that number in it. That of course it makes me realize how maybe old I am or something. But is that there's been a lot of ups and downs and a lot of changes. But what's different, I think in the 90s, that the supply and demand was different. You could be a mediocre operator and still make a living. But anymore, you have to be really good. it. That's the starting point. So people, there's so many demands on people's times, is that I would just start out with, hey man, hopefully your product is rock solid, your curriculum, your delivery. If you have a bunch of instructors that are B+ instructors, that's not going to cut it. That, it's like we've got to come out of the gate really good. That's the starting point. And if we do that, then of course the future looks bright as long as we're willing to capitalize on it. So what's the first point you want to talk about, Mr. B?
So, well, we'll go back real fast, and I just want to be like as real as possible. I mean, everybody thinks that they're a great instructor and their floor is rocking. What would be some tests or ways to really benchmark whether that's really accurate or not?
Yeah, well, I think there's several things. So first and foremost is that if you on the floor, if you have an issue with people being distracted, like looking at the clock, something like that tells you that you're probably you don't have your A game. Okay, so one of the things is, as far as an instructor goes, is that if kids are being, I hate to use the word entertained, but if you have a rock solid high energy class, they're just going to be engaged. And a good test is if you hear people say class is over already versus when class is going to be over. That would be one indication. The other thing is engagement from parents that are observing how involved they are. Can you get them from doing this to look up and actually participate in the classroom is a really good sign. And of course, retention is everything. The bottom line is as Stephen Covey says, you can't talk yourself out of a situation you behaved yourself into. And if you're having a hard time keeping people in your program, we got to point the finger back at at us. Like you said, Mr. B, at the beginning about how the economy's rocking right now, if and when things do tighten up, not only do we want people to leave martial arts on their list, we don't even want our martial arts to end up on their list of potential things that they're going to cut. In other words, when they think, okay, let me see, how can we tighten up on our budget? We can get rid of Netflix. We can go to the movies less. We don't even want martial arts to end up on that list to be considered. Now, that's a pretty high thing to live up to. But how do we do that? By making sure we deliver to making our families and our adult students like they can't live without this program. And so we all think we do it, but the measure is, once again, if your retention is rock solid and you're getting great feedback on a consistent basis, and by the way, if you train your people, then that's a good indicator.
Yeah. So let's just make sure that I think like all those things are huge. And you talked about retention. Again, we hear from schools all the time how great their school is and nobody quits, but they enroll 10 people a month. They have 100 students. At the end of the year, they still have 100 students. Like, obviously that's, those numbers don't make sense. So I think we have to be real and really be introspective and look at our numbers and make sure if anybody needs help, Michael over there, be happy to send anybody who needs a stat sheet. Like, we have a stat sheet that'll do the calculations for you. You put like how many students you started with for the month, how many you enrolled, and a couple other things, and it'll do the numbers for you and tell you like the goals in our school. Like if we're around 4% attrition, lose 4% a month, like across the 22 schools, like that's like okay with us. Do we have schools that are in the 2 and 3%? Yes. But we also have schools that are, in the 5 or 6, maybe like 5, 5.5. We're trying to work through. Like on average, I think like 4 is okay. But certainly if you're running your school on your own, I'm sure Mr. Garcia's school over there, I'm sure when I say 4, he's like cringing, he would kill himself, is 3 or 2%. So I think number one is kind of knowing where you are, so you kind of know where you need to be. Next is, you want to talk about systems. So everything's got to be systematized. Yep. So if you don't have this, or if you haven't read it yet, write down the book, The E-Myth, like the letter E and then the word myth, write down the E-Myth. For us, that was a pivotal time in our growth as a school. And you pretty much need your school to run the way a franchise would run, or if a 10-year-old can't run your business, it's too hard. And if you're listening to that, saying to yourself, no way, a 10-year-old can run my business, it's so sophisticated. You don't have a scalable business. Like, it's got to be, if a 10-year-old had the list of things that need to happen, whether it was unlock the door, turn the key to the right, go listen to the voicemail, and when the person says this, you say this, or even teaching class, same thing. You say right leg back, bring your hands up, guarding stance, say ah, and then look, and like everything you do is a system. You just have to have it documented for other people to do it.
Yeah. So, and if you, and by the way, I don't think he's saying that you should have 10-year-olds running your school. It's just that it should be really simplified. And by the way, Michael St. John actually was practically running one of your locations when he was 10 years old, right? He was doing a lot of stuff with it. But back to the systems. So the first time I ever saw, I opened up a school in, like I said, in 78, and there was no systems. And if anybody knew what they were doing, they were closely guarded secrets that weren't shared by other people. And I finally went to a Grandmaster Junri seminar in February of 1987, and I got a hold of a phone script, and it was like, oh, this is remarkable. You know, it was like, this is how you answer the phone. And so right at this about the same time, my brother became my partner, and we decided we're going to codify everything. And at the time we were going to seminars all over, everybody's seminar, and we decided, how can we apply that to our martial arts world? So we started in creating systems for everything. And of course we were exposed to EFC and all these other wonderful sources. But we spent, tens of thousands of dollars and thousands of hours kind of creating these systems. So what's important is that what you said is you have to have a system. Mr. B, through the years, how much money have you spent on education?
I'm embarrassed. Well, not embarrassed. I guess I'm sort of proud. We went back and looked at our QuickBooks, and we spent like $572,000, with our, nothing matters more to us than educating our instructors. And when people look at like how many schools we have and the quality of the schools, they just see like kind of the final product. But the reality is we spend a ton of resources, our time and money, making that happen. And you do the same thing, you know what I mean? And all good schoolers are. Before we go any further though, and I say this with all love, anybody who has their camera off, if you have it off because like you're driving or your bedroom is a mess and you're listening that way, totally get it. That's totally fine. But if you're listening to the seminar, so later on you can say, "Oh, I went to a seminar, but nothing, but nothing ever changes." It's kind of like the person who has a gym membership but never goes, but they have the gym membership. Put on your camera, be fully engaged. We're only going to be on here for another like 16 minutes, but be fully engaged. Like, you're learning from Mr. Kovar, has been around forever. And literally, I mean, Sensei Michael has a bunch of schools that are successful. Mr. Garcia is beyond successful. Like if they're on there fully engaged, you guys should be on there, like take 16 minutes and give it to yourself. Don't be one of those people. So Mr. Kovar, do you want to talk about the next secret or do you want me to go into it?
You go for it, man.
Awesome. So we spent the first few years of our schools, creating systems, and we really had a solid system. We'd open up a school, we would take somebody who was, an assistant instructor at our main location, we'd find them a location, we'd put them in, they would have almost immediate success. For us, the standard then, this was probably like 18 years ago, was like if they can gross 30,000 a month in that school, everybody's profitable, right? Like we made money, they made money, more money than they made before, and everybody's profitable. And that was really like, oh, that's perfect. And we kept going and going and going and going. And we wound up with 18 schools. Long story, trying to be as short as possible. We wound up, one day we're in Santa Monica, I think, at a seminar, and I get a call from one of the school owners, and he says, his name was Frank. He's like, hey, I just want to let you know, a bunch of us met together. We're leaving you, and we're also suing you. Now, for me, that blew my mind. They were all successful. Nobody lost anything. And it was just a really, really dark period in my life. And besides years of lawsuits and tons of money, we pretty much shut down. It's like our schools, I mean, we still had the other schools and they were all very successful, but like our growth was, I have a partner, her name is Jacqueline, and like our internal conversations were grow again. We don't want to do this anymore. Like I thought about what other kind of career I could have, I'm college educated. I'm like, I could do other things. But after going through the emotion and, letting that emotion wash through, what we realized was we just let the wrong people in. Although we had a great system and the system worked, it worked for everybody. We let in just the wrong people with the wrong character. And once we developed the systems, the playbook, the framework to develop instructors, is when everything really started to take off and grow, for that next phase for us to grow. Mr. Kovar, do you want to talk about like some of the broader points they can take notes of how to create an instructor?
Absolutely. I think to sum up this whole process, we know to scale, it's about your team, and it's not easy, right? But the mindset of if you want something done right, you have to do it yourself. That's a very limiting mindset. Okay. So if I was to sum it up in 6 words, it's hire right, train right, treat right. You got to start with the right person. And one of the advantages we have in many cases, we get to interview our potential staff over years, watching them as students develop, right? And then you train them right. And that's what we're kind of talking about with the systems that you have in place. And also train them right will have to do with the ongoing daily meetings that we do as well, Mr. B, that you can talk about in a minute. But one of the key things that I think when it comes to developing the right team is knowing this. So you can have this really good person and you can train them right and treat them right. And there's certainly going to be a certain member of or percentage of people that are going to leave anyway. They're going to do their own thing for their own reasons. Okay. The flip side is you can hire somebody and treat them terrible. And for whatever reason, they might stick with you forever. But the majority of the people, if you treat them right, hire, train, and treat them right, they'll stick with you as long as you don't give them a reason to leave. And that's really the sweet spot that I think is really important to do. And is to go to battle for your team. And that's one of the things that I see you guys doing in Philadelphia so well with the Action Karate team. And I think you ought to talk about what you do as far as on a daily basis with the team to keep them on track, because the level of enthusiasm and motivation, I've honestly, it's very unique to our industry. What happens in the mornings that there's 60 people are on a call every morning with their pen in hand, ready to go. And how did you cultivate that? And what's that about, Mr. B?
Well, I would love to take all the credit for that, but of course, Michael St. John over there runs those meetings and just keeps everybody on track. So just a quick recap. So system number one is you need to have really good systems in your school. And those systems have to be producing the results that you want. And if they're not, then you don't have good systems. Number two, you need to have a way of creating instructors. And like Mr. Kovar said, it's not easy, but it is, if you want to create a living, you need karate students. If you want to create a life for yourself, you need karate instructors or martial arts instructors. In order to have a real life, that's really what needs to happen. And I think it's a mindset shift. Like once you have a model school and people are looking around going, this is amazing, I would love to do this. Okay, you have the right systems. And then you have to figure out a way, like Mr. Kovar said, to, when there are, like for us, we have a career ladder. So it starts out with student and then like leadership team or junior leadership team, SWAT members. It goes up to like partner, area developers. Like if you know Mr. McCreary, like we're golfing today. Sorry, Mr. Garcia, we're golfing, you're not. And he's talking about opening his 5th and 6th school in the next 12 months, right? Like he's following those, he's following the same exact path, so, which is totally awesome. So let's talk about the daily meeting. So for us, everything's going pretty well. 2020, I just got married. I'm in Disney World, having a great time. And then I hear like from my parents that they might close the country, which I mean, I heard that a little bit. I don't really watch the news much, but like I heard that was a thing, but I didn't think that was even possible. And then they said they're closing, like I was there on Friday, and then they announced at the park they were closing it on Monday. And I really couldn't, I was like, I couldn't understand how they were closing Disney. I thought that wasn't even like a possibility. So, everybody went through the same thing. And the internal conversations for us were, how are we going to survive 2 weeks? We can't be closed for 2 weeks, let alone like 18 months of total chaos. Well, what we wound up doing is we got on Zoom immediately. By, our first phone call was a few days before. By that Monday, we had a full tilt of Zoom classes. And we were like everybody else. We were figuring it out as we went. Laptops, phones leaned against books, in the basement, at the karate school, whatever it took, didn't matter. But what wound up happening is what Mr. Kovar was talking about, is we have a Zoom meeting 4 days a week now. And that's how like the martial arts CEO program was created. Was the results we started getting pretty quickly were like we grew during COVID, our schools grew. And I'll talk about what I think is a metrics of growing. And we bought buildings, we took on new instructors, we hired people. We were starting people at $70,000, a year during the middle of COVID. And please don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to brag or anything. And when it was happening, I was super nervous. I was like, oh my God, what if this gets worse, right? But like, that's what it took. So every morning, 9 a.m., if you want to take notes, if you want to run your own meetings, 9 a.m. on Monday is like top priorities for the week. So if you want to down like, things that kind of happen, for us, last week was all about trunk or treat type stuff and marketing. And we also talk a lot about like what happened really great in your school that week. So everybody's like focused on like really good things happening, not enrollments. Because if you take care of your students and have a good class experience, all this really fixes itself. Number two, or on Tuesday, is sales and marketing. So it could be phone script, marketing on Facebook, Instagram. It could be anything that's to do with sales or marketing, mindset shift, stuff like that. This week we watched a video on Oprah. And on Wednesday, we do retention. right? Like a school, if you can enroll students and keep them, you have a really solid school. So Wednesday is retention, and we do a case study every week about retention. And then Thursday, write this down, we actually train together. The number one way to create a relationship is to break bread, right? So anytime you have dinner with somebody, that creates a relationship. The second best way is to work out and sweat together. Anytime you've ever hit pads with somebody or sparred with somebody, you have a different relationship with them. So every Thursday morning, our schools and the martial arts CEO schools are all trained together. Everybody's in their schools, but it's on Zoom. Everybody's got partners and they're hitting pads or doing sparring drills. I mean, it's super basic and simple. Like as far as the martial arts itself, I don't think it's anything like mind blowing, but it's, you know, just sweating together is what gives that difference. What else we got, Mr. Kovar? What am I forgetting?
Well, I think you nailed it pretty well. And one of the things that's happened is that, you know, one of my mantras that I live by is take care of the days and the years take care of themselves. And a lot of times what we do is we tend to regret the past or worry about the future. It's like, oh, if I should have prepared better, or what's going to happen if. And what both of those do is they take you out of the present moment and they help make you perform well. And one of the key things is that I find it's really important, and that what we're doing in our schools and you're doing in your schools is that every day we're getting up and we're executing. You know what I'm saying? It's not like we're getting up, we're and a lot of times, like, you know, you and I, our schools run very similar systems, and it's not rocket science. It's not like these crazy things. It's simple stuff, but it's not always easy to do. Like for confirming appointments, calling people when they don't show, doing an 8-step student progress check where I'm interacting with families and parents and giving them feedback. It's all those systems that the old phrase is, I work so good, I quit doing it, right? You know, oh yeah, I used to do that. Well, you know, writing people awesome cards, all those kind of things that matter dramatically. I recently got an awesome card from one of our instructors that sent me a card. And, you know, just, hey, Mr. Kovar, I just want to let you know, you know, I've been a part of the organization for years. And I just want to say, I haven't said it enough. I really love being a part of it. I've learned so much from you, and I look forward to years of future growth together. And, you know, it took him 30 seconds to write or a minute to write, but I'll tell you what did I do? I didn't read it once and throw it away. It's like, oh, so cool. I showed it to my wife, you know, I put it by my desk, and it's so simple. And I know what he was doing, and you all know too, but it's still, it was heartfelt, and that's the kind of thing. Remember, what's important with our staff and with our students is we keep our emotional connection strong. Okay. And we do that by, you know, like, noticing and appreciating the work they're doing and giving people feedback. Now, this is all basic stuff that we know, we just forget to do it. And kind of the whole idea with the daily check-ins is this gives us a chance to say, okay, guys, today let's do this. Let's take out our phones and let's go on Facebook and we're going to actually go through an assignment. We're going to reach out to inactive students, or we're going to text old leads, or stuff that we know to do that somehow we forget, and all of a sudden maybe we aren't very productive during the day and we show up just in time to teach classes, and we leave right afterwards and we wonder why we're not making progress.
Absolutely. This week, this could be something that everybody writes down also, and you can probably reach out to Michael for the exact script. And that's one of the benefits, by the way. Like, we have 50 or 60 people on the call every single morning. It's not like a once in a while type situation, and we have 50 or 60 people. And when and everybody is good at something, right? Like, we're all just so much better together. And this week we wrote a message. We took three of our top students, was the idea, and we texted them in a very specific way, asking them for a testimonial with, you know, we put like the link to Google or Facebook, and then we asked them to write us a testimonial. And like the response the next day was, of course, the next day we say, they do it on the text, but then not everybody replies right away. We do it during the meeting, and then we asked, all right, how'd it go? And people were like, oh, so great. And here's like the real nugget of gold here. Not only are we getting more Google reviews, and most of our schools and the martial arts CEO schools have more reviews than all their competitors combined, because, you know, we're doing this stuff on a regular basis. Even if you do it a couple times a year, it's still a lot. But the retention you get from it, I can't write a really good review about a restaurant and not think about the restaurant, about going in the future and eating there, right? So when somebody writes, oh, I love action karate, or I love, I love, whatever it is, whatever karate school it is, I love it, love it, love it, love it. The instructor is wonderful, and they're really good with the kids. They know everybody's name. And then also think about quitting. Your brain just doesn't work that way. So not only are you getting the review, you're also building retention at the same time. And for the people that, if anybody on here is struggling, like, totally get it. All you need to do is change some habits and some systems and you'll get there. And truly, we are in the most exciting time ever in the martial arts, I think, business history. Like, for us, we're growing, and by the way, like, I'm not overly intelligent. I mean, Sensei Michael's really smart, but I'm not like overly intelligent or like the greatest karate practitioner on the planet. Like, there's nothing about us that is super special. What makes us special is we're we have the systems, we're doing the daily meetings, and like, our growth right now is not only all of our metrics are above. We have more instructors than we've ever had. We have more students we've ever had. Our gross revenue is higher than it's ever been. Our net revenue is higher than it's ever been. But people are now coming to us that want to open schools. One of Mr. McCurry's schools that's going to be opening probably next May is 2 university doctor professors that want to do what we do. Think about this for a second. What we have to offer. We do amazing things in our community that people truly need. We can offer competitive compensation equal to a university professor, right? And they can also eventually, it takes time, but they can leverage their time where they have other instructors, so they can actually get out of doing the work constantly. They'll probably still do a lot of it because they love it, but also have time freedom. They can get the financial and time freedom, which, even high paying jobs, my sister works for Netflix and makes tons and tons of money, but she has to work every week, every hour. She gets paid by the hour. With us, I could be doing this with you guys right now, right? Like, I'm behind, I don't know if you can see it behind me, but I'm on a golf course. As soon as it's over, I'm on hole number 10, right? And, Mr. Kovar, you were speaking to the Chamber of Commerce yesterday, not because you're getting paid for it, because like, it's, one of your enjoyable things to do. Sensei Michael with his traveling for months out of the year. So, help people make good money, leverage yourself out of all the hours and don't be on the hamster wheel. That's what martial arts has to offer now, done right. So if anybody's like down about anything, forget COVID, that's over. Like, we can truly have such just a great place that we're in right now.
Yep. And the other thing I would just remind everybody, the world needs our product. I know, what we have, martial arts addresses so many important needs that people, you guys know it. How many guys have had someone, if you raise your hand, if you had a parent say, your school changed my kid for the better? We've had that happen. Because I had a parent, an adult student that said, man, you saved my life. I was going down the wrong path, right? How many people can say that? That's us. And so we owe it to our student body to be successful, because I've been desperate. Oh, how do I pay the rent? And that doesn't make me a better business operator. It doesn't make me a better teacher. And I've been, I've been in a financially stable place with plenty of team. And man, that's when you can be at your best, when you're coming from that center. And so I would encourage you guys, man, to work hard and smart. And Mr. B, I do believe that anybody on the call, are you inviting them to sit in on some of the morning meetings?
Yeah, absolutely. We would absolutely love that. If you guys want to reach out to me or anybody you're connected to on Facebook, either me, Mr. Kovar, or Mr. St. John, he's the chief operating officer to make all of this happen. If you want to reach out to any of us, we'll give you a link for Monday morning. The only thing we ask is your camera's definitely going to be on, and you're there. You're going to play full out. I mean, you're sort of like you're not going to be like just listening. You're going to participate, and there's people at all different levels. Like it's just a really friendly community. And anyway, if you don't take advantage of it, you can come for a week for free. Like, it would be insane not to. If it was me, I would be doing it.
So I'd like to hear from Michael St. John, because we had your picture on the promotion, and you're such a smart guy, and you've been over there listening quietly. Any thoughts for our participants here today?
Yeah, I was waiting for the second half, but you guys took up all the time. So thanks a lot, gentlemen. No, it was amazing. I think it's always super cool. I think Mr. B, you said it, Mr. Garcia, we've known for a long time and had at our school, and, super successful and is here learning and growing. And I think the secret to all of this, you both said it, it's, brilliant in the basics, right? It's the daily habits and constantly listening with an open mind and implementing and taking action. So great job as always, you two.
So Kristen, I know that we have a half hour slotted. Can we take some questions? Is that okay? If people need to leave, they can leave. Is that okay with you, Mr. B? Do we have time for a couple questions? Did anybody have any questions for myself or Mr. B or St. John? Paul Garcia, you're on mute, sir. Come on, man. It's a year and a half later. You got to get this figured out. Unmute button figured out. There we go.
Am I on? Am I good?
Yes, sir.
So we have an advantage as school owners that we know the people we're hiring for the most part. You know, we know them, they come up as kids. Is there anything specific that you look for? You had mentioned, you know, both of you hiring the right people.
Yeah.
Anything specific that you're looking for?
Yeah. So first off, you know, my philosophy is plant seeds early and often. You know, I'm having conversations with people really early in their training about a possible job or career. But the most important thing for me is not, and you know this, it's not how good their sidekick is. It's their attitude. It's how well they take input as a student. You know, how punctual they are as a student. You know, are they the person that naturally puts the pad away after they're done using it? Do you see them walking down the hall and seeing something out of line and kind of naturally straightening it, right? Do they stand by the drinking fountain and let somebody else get the drink first? You know, just kind of, and by the way, some of those are learned traits, right? But some people instinctually have that service heart, and that for me is a real high priority. That service heart, and then being someone that's very consistent and punctual. But I think what's really important, you guys all know, every one of you guys teaches martial arts. There's been a time in your career when you taught your first class, someone asked you, would you like to help teach or something? I remember my first moment, and there's no downside to planting seeds with people about becoming an instructor someday. The worst thing that happens is they're better students because they realize that, oh man, I could be a teacher someday. I better show up to class at the right time. I'm not sure if I answered your question, but that would be a crack at it.
I just want to add one thing. Everything you said, of course, is brilliant. We know now, like you pretty much can interview people for years in our system, right? So we pretty much hire everyone that wants a job, and that doesn't mean, by the way, they're getting paid, right? There's levels of leadership that don't get paid. But pretty much everyone gets hired, and then we'll see how they do, right? Because just because somebody seems good at one thing doesn't mean they're good at another thing, right? So they're a good head instructor doesn't mean they're a good school manager, or you know, the reverse of that, or they might be like not that great at teaching a class, but they'd be crushing it, you know, during an enrollment conference, right? Like they're more of like an introvert, and when they can really like understand and be empathetic to other people. So our situation, you know, we believe is like every person who walks is a potential instructor, and anyone that, you know, once there's a little bit of vetting, pretty much everybody gets hired, and then we go from there, right? So we think everybody gets a chance to try it, and we see their character.
Yeah. So I would leave you guys with a couple of thoughts, and number one is actionable items, some things that you can do today, like right now, to improve your school. Okay, one of them would be reach out to inactive, take a look at your inactive list. Go through that list and identify a few people that you had great rapport with, and pick up the phone and say, hey, we miss you. You know, are you interested in getting back into training? That would be one thing. I think that also works for staff development. You're looking for a staff member, look at your inactive list of somebody that could have been a potential student that quit for whatever reason. Maybe the time is good for them now. The other thing I would do is I would go out of my way, like today, just for fun. Kristen, would you raise your right hand for me? Why did you do that? Because I asked you to, right?
Because you asked me to, yes.
Ask your students for a referral and ask them for a review, okay? Hey, I'd love to have another student just like you. We love having students just like you. Do you have any friends that could benefit from the program? And do that today. Do that today, sincerely, heartfelt. And when you're doing it, think from in your mind, remember that student is going to benefit from the program. It's not about needing more students. Please bring me a new student, please. No, it's about, hey, man, they're going to thank them later. So it's simple steps like that. Now, that's not going to change your school overnight, but you keep doing that every day, and you look back 6 months later and you're in a whole different world. So any closing thoughts, Mr. B?
No, but I think Derek has his hand up. I don't know.
Oh, I'm sorry. Derek, what do you got, sir? Good to see you, sir.
Good to see you, Mr. Kovar, and thanks everyone for setting this up. And it's great to see Paul Garcia. I haven't seen him in, I don't know, 5 years. So it's great surprise. But I'm still running I'm the only guy in the shop. At what point do you recommend hiring someone else to instruct? Is there a number of students that you say it's time, or at what point do you say, okay?
I'll take the lead on that, okay? First off, if you have the right person, it's always the right time if it's the right person. Because if you have the right person and you train them right, they're going to they're going to make the company more money than they're costing you. Does that make sense? So wherever you are in the process, now there's a lot of variables, like, but if you can get away with someone that's on a part-time basis, maybe they start out as a volunteer, right, helping out a couple times a week, and then you maybe give them a part-time basis, and you're really specific with the tasks that you have them at hand. You train them right. You make sure that you hold them accountable to what they're doing. I've never regretted hiring the right person, even when the active count wasn't, quite where I needed it to be. It's kind of like Field of Dreams. If you build it, they will come. Mr. B, something to add to that?
I would have said it less perfectly. It was perfect, sir.
Okay. I
Thank
hope
you.
that helps. But if you're wondering if it's the right time, it's the right time. And by the way, being a lean and mean, a single person operator is a cool place to be. You can control your destiny, but then you also have to worry, man, if you get a cold, your school's affected, right? And I've been there, man. That's how I did things for the first 10 years. I was convinced if I didn't teach every class, people were going to quit. And every time I hired somebody, my school grew. It was like, oh man, it was kind of hard on the ego, but it was the best thing for my school, because really, I'm sure you've had those days where it's Thursday, you've already taught 14 classes that week, your voice is gone, you're dehydrated, you're not your best version. But if you can just step in and be, man, your best self for a part of class and step back out and let someone do the heavy lifting, you can prolong that for a long time. And so I think that right now is the time to do it.
Great. Thank you.
You bet. All right. Well, guys, I think you ought to take Mr. Brenner up on his offer. If you guys are free, reach out to Mr. Brenner, or Michael St. John's really the lead there. Why don't you give me your email address, sir, or what's the best way to get a hold of you?
Easiest way, find me on Facebook, Michael St. John. I can put my email address in the chat for everyone real quick, but message me on Facebook, super easy.
And I think you'll be really impressed if you're able to attend a few of those days. We would love to help you on a further basis if you like what you see next week in the morning sessions. So thank you, Ms. Campbell, for having us on. We appreciate any questions that you have. We appreciate Member Solutions and putting this call together.
Thank you, everyone, for attending.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for coming out.
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say just thanks, everybody, for participating. If you weren't here, we have nobody to talk to.
That is true. We're recording this, so we will be sending out a link to the recording so you can watch it at your leisure or share with your staff. And thank you, everyone. Have a great afternoon. Take care.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Good to see you guys.